One of my colleagues, who is usually easygoing and sociable, absolutely refuses to go near the sea. I once asked him why, but he seemed reluctant to talk about it. So, one night, I got him drunk and forced the story out of him. What follows is his account, though I've cleaned it up a bit, as his drunken rambling was disjointed. When he was still a student, he went on a road trip with a friend. It was right after their final exams in the second semester, so it must have been the dead of winter. It wasn't a well-planned journey. Just the two of them and his friend's beloved dog, aimlessly driving around in a van. One evening, after several days on the road, they found themselves in a small, cold seaside village. The sun had already set. It was a remote place where the mountains pressed right up against the sea, leaving just enough space for a small cluster of houses to cling precariously to the land. Unfortunately, their fuel gauge was running low as they drove along the narrow coastal road. Searching for a gas station, they soon found one, but the place was already closed. Hoping to find someone, they circled around to the back of the station. There, they saw a large woven basket hanging from the eaves of the entrance. It seemed oddly placed, obstructing the doorway. Brushing it aside, they rang the doorbell. "Excuse me, can we get some gas?" They sensed movement inside, but no one answered. Are they ignoring us? Kind of rude. Try ringing again. Hello? Sorry to bother you, but we really need some gas. After persistently calling out, a dim light flickered on inside, and a silhouette appeared behind the frosted glass door. Who is it? We just need some gas. We're closed for the night. The response was curt and impatient. Please, it's just a little. I said no. We can't open up tonight. The door never budged. With no other choice, they returned to the van. Typical countryside attitude. Oh well. Let's just sleep here and get gas first thing in the morning. They drove around looking for a place to park for the night. It was then they realized every shop and house in the village had shut its doors tightly. Upon closer inspection, they noticed that each house had baskets or woven sieves hanging under the eaves. Some kind of festival? If so, it sure is quiet. The wind's getting stronger. Ah, that parking spot looks good. They found a small shrine nestled in the mountains, with a long stone staircase leading straight down to the sea. Near the base of the stairs was a tiny parking area, sheltered by hedges from the harsh sea breeze. Deciding it was the best option, they parked the van behind the torii gate. With nothing left to do in the pitch darkness, they grumbled to each other before curling up under blankets in the front seats and drifting off to sleep. Some hours later, he awoke to the sound of his dog growling. A deep, guttural sound he had never heard before. The first thing he noticed was a horrid, overpowering stench. Like something rotting. Like something that had died long ago and had been left to fester. His dog, baring its teeth, was staring intently toward the sea. It refused to calm down, no matter how much he tried to soothe it. His friend woke up, and the two of them peered into the darkness. The moonlit ocean was eerily still. Far too quiet compared to earlier that night. But something was moving. At the edge of the cold, concrete seawall, something was wriggling. What the hell is that? His friend whispered hoarsely. I don't know. At first, it looked like a thick pipe or a large log being washed ashore. But it was moving, writhing like a massive snake. Strangely, it made no sound. Instead, there was a constant, low, droning hum. A noise that wasn't quite an animal's growl or the wind's whisper. And the stench had grown unbearable. The thing's body wasn't solid. It seemed to be shifting like a swirling mass of black smoke. They couldn't even tell if it was truly physical. But one thing was certain, it was enormous. One end of it had already reached a house on the opposite side of the road. The other end was still deep in the sea. And at the tip of the thing that touched the house's eaves, there was a face. Though he couldn't see it clearly, he knew. It was watching. It stared at the hanging baskets, as if checking each one carefully. Then, after what felt like an eternity, it began slithering toward the next house. "Start the car." His friend's voice trembled. That snapped him out of his daze. His arms felt numb, as if frozen in place. Forcing himself to move, he turned the key. The engine roared to life, shattering the unnatural silence. The thing stopped. And it turned to look at them. A feeling of pure terror gripped him. Somehow, he knew, he couldn't look into its eyes. Something deep within him screamed, "Don't make eye contact." Fixing his gaze straight ahead, he slammed the gas pedal. As they sped off, the dog in the back seat started barking madly. Then, suddenly, it let out a strangled yelp and collapsed. Taro. His friend, overcome with panic, turned around. Then, he froze. "Don't look." Instinctively, he grabbed his friend's shoulder and yanked him forward. His friend faced forward again, but his eyes were unfocused, blank. His face was twisted in terror. Neither of them spoke. They just kept driving. They drove until they were completely out of gas. They crossed the mountain pass. And then, as the sun rose, they finally came to a stop. His friend was hospitalized for a week, suffering from a raging fever. Even after recovering, he refused to talk about what he saw. They eventually drifted apart. As for the dog, it never recovered. It began biting anyone who got near, foaming at the mouth before collapsing. In the end, it had to be put down. He never found out what that thing was. And he never wants to. But one thing is certain. He will never go near the sea again. That was my colleague's story. It reminded me of something I once read in Kunio Yanagita's Folklore studies, about how baskets and woven sieves were used as protective charms in some regions. There was also a belief in certain days when one must never look at the sea. Unfortunately, I don't have the book with me now, so I can't compare.